I'm starting the recording. Okay, that's fine. Then I need to do this. Okay, recording is started. So let's go. So I'm just connecting to the uh, server. We have errors at the SCCM installation. So we are going to start from there today. Okay, so we are going to install the SCCM configuration primary site server today. So basically I did a mistake yesterday that I thought I was installing SQL Server Enterprise, but I installed SQL Server Express. Okay, so I have to uninstall SQL Server Express and install the SQL Server Enterprise edition. uh, the installation is pretty much same. Okay, the options, everything is same, just the version of the particular software, I mean the version of the SQL is different, but the installation steps and procedures and all other prerequisites are same. So I haven't changed anything. I just uninstalled SQL Express and I installed SQL Enterprise Edition. Okay, so I'm going to the SSCM path. We already, so just to do a quick recap, we already extended the Active Directory schema for SCCM. We have installed the prerequisites from Server Manager, that is bits role, .NET Framework, Web Server IAS, and all those prerequisites. And then we have installed the ADK setup for Windows ADK 8.1. We have installed tools like User State Migration tool, Windows PE tool, and one more tool, that the deployment tools. And then we install SQL Server Express Edition. That's it. So we haven't done anything else. So I'm going to run the setup as an administrator for the config manager. Okay, I just go through the steps very quickly because this is the third time we are doing, so I think you should be all familiar with this process now. So this is a primary site, yes, and I'm trying an evaluation version and I accept the terms. Okay, I accept. Next. Now I've already downloaded the files previously, right? We haven't done the installation, but the files are downloaded during the prerequisite. So I'm just going to point to that particular folder where the files are there. So it will just cross verify whether all the required files are there in that path or not. So it is verifying 15 cab files. Okay. Okay, select English, English. Okay, this is your site code to uniquely recognize. So for example, this is our Chennai site, so I make it as CHE. So Chennai underscore primary. This is the primary site in Chennai. So I want the installation to be done in the F drive because in C drive we don't have enough space. So I'll go with F drive. Next. Okay, this is a standalone site. Next. Okay, you know this prompt. We can make it a central administration site whenever we need. Okay. So it is creating a SQL instance for the database cm underscore che. Okay, so now this is the SQL Server log files where they get stored. So that's fine. And this is my fully qualified domain name of my SCCM server. That is also fine. So I just need HTTP communication. I'm not using HTTP because we don't have any certificates here. So I need to build a PKI server, that is public key infrastructure, Active Directory certificate services. I need to install that role and then I need to configure some kind of a root domain controller, and then I need to issue certificates to the clients and all the stuff. So we are not going to do that here. We just be depending on the HTTP communication, which doesn't require any certificates. uh, and this is my domain management point, and this is my distribution point. So both are on the same server. The client connection is HTTP. I'm not using HTTPS here because we don't have certificates, as I said. So management point role is going to be installed, and distribution point role is going to be installed on the same server. Basically, if you have one server, it is like a role that you need to surely install on this point in this particular server. If you have a multiple server, like you don't want to make this as a central administration, I mean, like you want to make this as a primary site server but not a distribution point. You want to configure the distribution point on a different server for redundancy or for load, I mean, like you want to make sure that you have some performance avoid some kind of performance problems. You don't want to install distribution point, you can uncheck that. This is just an option for you. We just have only one server here, so I'm installing all roles, all the required default roles on this server only. So I don't want to join the customer program and then hit next, so it's gonna do some kind of prerequisites, I mean, like checking. Once it is done, we should be good. So warnings are fine, we should not have any errors. So I'm hoping everything will go good because I haven't had any issues before. So yeah, so that is fine. Now if I say begin install, so this is gonna, you cannot use the root of a drive as the sole directory path. Okay, that's fine. Okay, um, understand what's the problem. So, can I just, I can't go back. Oh my god. So did you understand what it said? Like the problem is it is telling that I new folder. I cannot use the root of the drive. Why? I don't know. But it is telling that I need to do it in a particular folder rather. So I will go to F installations, SMS setup, bin x64 setup. That's fine. We get errors, but that's fine. That's how we actually learn, like what need to be doing or what not to be done. So evaluation product, that's fine. Accept, agree, next. Accept, next. Use previously downloaded folders. This PC, F drive, SCCM. Okay, next. Oh, sorry. This is not. Uh, this is installation files. Okay, next. Okay, English. Next. Site code is Chennai. CHENNAI underscore primary. Install the management console. Installation folder is F drive SCCM. Okay, next. So standalone. Yes, next. Okay, next. Only HTTP. Next. Don't want to join. So it's gonna take a while for the installation to complete. Am I sharing the screen? Yes. Okay. Okay. Begin install. Okay. So the setup has started the installation. Okay. So it's gonna take like couple of minutes, like probably 10 to 15 minutes. for this to be completed. So yeah. So in the meanwhile, any questions that you guys have from last 2 classes or 3 classes? Anything that you would like to discuss?
Now, as a prerequisite, do you want to open any particular port to establish this? Yeah.
See, if you look at the SQL database, the ports are already actually, I mean, on the server, right?
Yes.
Okay, so basically what happens is we have SQL and SCCM installing on one server. Okay, so the ports are locally connected, so we don't need to open any ports in this particular scenario because the ports are already open because on the local host every port can communicate with every port only within that particular server. But if the server want to connect to a different server, okay, if the SQL is installed on a secondary server like a different server, and if you are now integrating SQL and SCCM together, right? You need to make sure that 4023 port, that is SQL port, is able to communicate with the SCCM server, and SCCM is also able to communicate with SQL on that particular port. So that requirement need to be taken care. If you are installing SQL and SCCM on the same server as we are doing right now, there is no need to open any particular port because they are installed on the same server. The communication can happen without any problem. Clear or any question?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay. So anything else? Any other questions?
No, Malik. If we are, I mean, hands-on practice, we'll get a lot of questions. We haven't
Yeah,
started. I will see.
yeah. Sure. I know that because I want to touch each and every option that we have, so that
Yes.
while you do hands on you don't got a question like, okay, what is this option for, why it was not covered. So those things I need to avoid first so that you can start your hands on. Okay, so because we have a limited day of trial period, right, 30 days, so I just want to cover all the essential things first, and then you can start actually doing hands on. You will
Yeah,
have
that's
a
what.
record, you will have recording for reference if you would like to, so that you can ensure that you have more visibility while working on the your own setup.
Okay.
So this is gonna work. So let me just quickly go ahead and do something else in the. So basically we have 3 machines: Active Directory, client, and SCCM. So client is already joined to the domain last Sunday, right? While we are working. So what I will do is I will go to Active Directory quickly and create some sites, and I will create some subnets, and then I will also create some users and computers and groups. Okay, so that we can quickly jump into the for the discovery methods, boundaries, and then device collection and user collection and user device affinity and all the stuff once the installation is done. So I'm going to log in as the same guy, lab account as lab.com, and give you him the password. So typically we just have one particular site. No, we don't have any sites, but we can actually manually create sites that that really don't need to exist in Active Directory sites and services. Okay, so you can manually create some subnets and sites just for demonstration purposes. So basically, if I go to sites, Active Directory sites and services. Come on, open up. Okay, so if I look at the sites here, there is only one site that is default site, and we'll only have one server, which is our Active Directory server. So I can rename this site to something as Chennai, because we named our this thing as Chennai. Okay, the default site can be renamed. So in Chennai, now we have one Active Directory server and one SCCM server and one client machine, which is Windows 10. Right? Correct? Any questions on that?
No, Malik.
No.
Clear, right? Okay,
Clear.
now if I go to the Chennai in the Azure portal, if I go to the Chennai subnet. So let me just check what is my Chennai subnet. The Chennai subnet is somewhere is 10.0.0.0/24. So now I need to go to the subnets and there is no subnet here. Okay, the subnet is not associated. So what I need to do, I need to create that subnet. So I say new subnet and then I will give the subnet prefix, which is 10.0.0.0/24. Right now that subnet is for Chennai. So I select Chennai and I hit OK. Okay, now Chennai site is, I mean, like Chennai site, Active Directory knows that Chennai subnet is 10.0.0.24. So whenever a client machine logs into the domains, logs into the network using any of the IP addresses within this range. So 10.0.0.0.24 will have somewhere around 254 IP addresses, which is 10.0.0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 254. So if any computer, client computer, logs on to the network within that range, within that IP range, Active Directory immediately knows that okay, it belongs to Chennai site. Okay, so so that doesn't make any kind, I mean, like any kind of sense for us, but it kind of in the background does a lot of work based on the site topologies and all the stuff. So now we have created that IP subnet range to and linked it to Chennai site. Very good. For example, if you have another site, okay, new site, this site does not exist in our particular infrastructure in the lab environment, but let us assume that we have some site like Hyderabad. Okay, this site is Hyderabad. We select the default IP link. That's fine. Site Hyderabad has been created, but it does not have any domain controller or it does not have any other information that Active Directory sites and services can pull. Because we only have one domain controller and it is associated with Chennai. For Hyderabad, we haven't created any domain controller or any subnet or anything. So Active Directory doesn't know any information. So that's fine. We don't want any information to be provided here. So there are no servers here. So for example, if I say that my subnet for Hyderabad is 192.168.0.0/24. Okay, this is my Hyderabad subnet. So I will associate it with Hyderabad. Okay, so now Hyderabad has an subnet associated, which is 192.168.0.0/24. Now if someone, a user in if assume that we have some kind of server in Hyderabad as well, a domain controller like we have it in Chennai. So if someone changes his password here in Chennai, so the Chennai password change should replicate to Hyderabad. So that is why we configure something called as site link. Okay, a site link is a link between two distinguished sites so that the changes can replicate or any other information can be passed between the sites, so that whenever someone in Chennai, so for example a user in Chennai changes the password and if the site link is not configured, the password change is not replicated to Hyderabad, and this user comes to Hyderabad for some business purpose and try to log into Hyderabad from Hyderabad network, he will not be able to log in because the password change is not replicated. Okay, so this to avoid this kind of problems, we configure site links for the replication. So basically you create a new site link and select for so basically you have only two sites, so it was defaulted here. If you have multiple sites, it will list here in this particular row, so you need to select and add so that it will come here. Okay, so that is how you configure. So you say Chennai to HYD site link. Okay, and click OK. So now the site link is created, so I can delete the default site link if required, and then this is the site link that is created. So this link, for example, if you have multiple site links for the same region, so if there is another site, we have actually demonstrated that before. If there is a third site, if you want to make a replication, you can configure a site link to that as well, but it will take the cost, I mean, whatever is the least cost, For example, for Chennai and Hyderabad, if there is also another link which is created, then which route it will take, it will depend on the cost of the site link. If the cost is low, it will go through that particular route. If the cost is high, it will try to avoid that route before going to replicate. So whichever is a low cost link, that will take that route. So now we have two subnets, two sites, and one a site link created. Site link is not really important. We need only the subnets and sites which are created. Now I will also go to the Active Directory, users and computers. So any questions on sites and site links? No, right?
No, no.
Okay, so these are the default users which are created. So I just don't want to make it this way. So I will create a new organization unit. Okay, for example, you have something called as corporate OU. OU is like a folder where you can uh, store your users and computers and all those stuffs. So in the corporate OU, for example, I want to make another folder structure which says human resource. Okay, so this is a human resource folder. So in this human resource folder, I am placing only people who are from HR department. Okay, so I need to have folder for users. So in this, I will store the HR user objects, and again in this I will store another folder which says computers. So all the HR users and computers will be here. Okay, now I need to create another OU. For example, I will create a new organization unit which is for sales. Okay, so in this particular OU, I want to ensure that I only have users from sales department and computers from sales department. So I say users. Okay, and then I do a OU for computers. Now, okay, so now we have one client computer, right? If you guys remember, we have a Windows 10 domain, a Windows 10 machine which is joined to domain. So that particular PC name is client. So if you want to see where this object is, you double click the object and you go to the object notation. So object is not shown here, so I need to enable advanced features so that you will see a lot of other features as well which are by default not shown to the end user. So if I go to this object client, okay, so this client is in which OU? It is in lab computers clients. So I go to lab computers OU. Here is the computers. Okay, so this is the client. Okay, so I want to drag and drop this client into the assume that this is an a computer of a HR guy. So I want to put that computer in human resource computer. So I'll go to lab OU and drag drop into computers. You can do it this way, or you can right click and move to computer. You can do it anyway. So in human resource, I have one computer which is client computer, and I will create some users as well here. Okay, new user, and I will say this guy is like uh, some kind of a name. So I will say is a Ajay, and his name is Ajay Kumar, and his logon name is Ajay Ajay K. First and Ajay K. First and last name at lab.com, and I will create a password for him. User cannot change the password. Oh, sorry. Generally, when you create user accounts, you will set user must change logon password. But this is lab. I am just unticking that just to ensure that if in case we need to log in as that user, we don't want to change the password again. So user, and then we have another user which is Ramesh Rao, something like that, for example. So I call him as Ramesh R as his username and give him a password. Okay, now we have two users add one computer in this OU. So I will create a another computer which is a dummy computer. This one actually exists. Okay, this is actually our Windows 10 computer, but this one does not exist. This is some kind of pseudo computer which is I will give it as a client one. Okay, and then I will say okay. So now we have two users, two computers. I will replicate the same thing in this folder as well. New computer. I will say this is sales one. Okay, and another computer. New computer. Sales two. Okay. Now I'll create a two more users. New users, and then I will give some name like Mahesh G. Mahesh Gaud, something like that. Mahesh G. Next. So actually, I'm creating all this infrastructure just to ensure that we quickly go into the uh, discovery part and also to the device collection and the user collection part as soon as the installation is done. So the new user, I will say some we Vinod Reddy Vinod R. Next password. That's fine. Okay, next, finish. So now we have corporate OU under which we have human resource, we have sales, computers, and users. That's fine. Now I want to create another OU for groups. Okay, so there are basically two types of groups, which is a distribution group and a security group. A distribution group is primarily used for people to sending emails. Okay, whenever you want to send an emails to a particular team, for example sales team, they will have sales at your company.com, and in that particular distribution group there will be members, there will be users. Okay, so that whenever you send an email to one particular distribution group, it will distribute that email to all the users within the distribution group. And there is another group type which is called as security. This kind of security groups are used for permissioning. For example, if you want to permission a particular access to an application, or if you want to permission someone to access or log into some kind of a website. Okay, instead of giving permissions to individual users, what you will do is you will give permission to the security group, one security group, and whoever is member of that particular security group will be able to access or log into the website or the application, whatever it is. So there are primarily two group types, and there are group scopes. Group scopes are actually used for different scenarios. Okay, global, universal, and domain local. So basically the group scopes are like domain local is primarily used whenever you have a cross reference objects. For example, if you have a trust relation between two computers, I mean like two companies, and they want to access some kind of resources within your organization. So what they will do, they will create one group which is a domain local, and you will get that group and add it to it as a universal, so that the cross reference object formation is done. This is a very broad topic, so I don't want to cover this. For our purpose, we don't really need this. So just understand that you have two group types, security and distribution, and the primary purpose. Security can hold permissions, distributions cannot hold permissions, they can just send emails or receive emails. So I will group type is security, and I will make some group as uh, for example, I will make it as access list. Okay, I will make it as a group. There is one group. Where did I create it? Where is that access list created? Okay, it is created here. Oh, so let me just delete this. I created a domain level, so I want to put it in a container. So let me just create an OU first. New organization unit, and it's, I say it as corporate groups. Okay, now I will create a new group within this group. Okay, which is access, user access. I will say user access, and I will create. Okay, now I will create another group. New group. This is computers access. So basically, groups can handle two things: a user or a computer. So for example, this particular is a computer access group. So I want I want to add computers to it. So I will say I've created some computers, right? So I need to select object reference as a computer here as well. So I click OK and say client. So client one is also a member of this group. Okay. And I want to add another group which is client one. So we are adding computers to the computer groups, and for the user access groups I will as add users. So I will select add, and Vinod, for example, I created one Vinod, and another user which is I don't remember the names. Ramesh Rao. Okay, fine. So now we have groups setup, we have users setup, we have computer setup. So let me just go through the installation. Where is it right now? So it is still running, so that's fine. So let me just so basically so these things are called as OUs, organization units, or you can also call it as a container, because we need this information. So if I go to get -ad computer, just a couple of things before we start. Computer now client. So I'm using a PowerShell command to get the list. So this is called a distinguished name. So just you need to have this in mind. So this is a distinguished name, and you can also add this in LDAP notation. So I will show you what is an LDAP notation is, how to, I mean, SCCM, whenever it queries the object, it will query through LDAP notation. So I will show you what is an LDAP notation as well. So this is a distinguished name, and we have corporate groups and users and computers which are set up. So what else we need? We have site services which are set up. So that's fine. I think we are pretty much good on the Active Directory part. So we have everything in place. So now we just need to wait for the installation to complete, post which we can run the discovery methods to discover all the objects that we have created within the Active Directory. So as soon as your SCCM installation is done, your SCCM will not be able to actually pull all those objects, whatever we have created right now, users, computers, sites. So those things will not be pulled by your SCCM configuration manager server. You need to manually, for the first time, you need to manually enable those sync between your Active Directory and configuration manager, so that from the next time it will use the polling schedule to get the changes done every time in your Active Directory, and it will automatically pull that information into your SCCM configuration manager. So far so good. Any questions?
Malik, if in our environment we have to create manually the sites and everything.
So
First
it
we need.
depends. So it depends. Like I show you right on that day, there are
Uh,
two options in the forest discovery where you
okay.
can check that or uncheck that. If you check that, it will automatically create the sites and boundaries for you. If you
Okay.
uncheck that option, you need to manually create that. So I'm going to show that once again. Once the setup is done, I will
Okay.
show you. So that day I've
Okay.
shown you, after enabling forest discovery, you have two options, right?
Yes. Yes.
Create sites and boundaries automatically, create IP address range boundaries automatically. There are two options. So if you check that, it will automatically create the sites and boundaries. If you are
Hmm.
not checking that, it will not create the boundaries and sites for you automatically. So you need to manually do that. So it will actually
Okay.
pull that information from Active Directory. Okay. It will take that
Okay.
information and it will keep it with SCCM, but it will not
Okay.
do anything. When you do manually, I will show you before enabling and before running the forest discovery.
Okay.
I will show you like what actually the information is showing for you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
looks like okay. So looks like the installation is done. So I'm launching the config manager console. Come on, configuration manager console. Right click, pin to taskbar. Right click. I want to run as administrator. Okay, so yeah, this is starting up. So did I open multiple? Yes, that's fine. So basically, this is your SCM configuration manager console. So probably you're all always aware of this. So we have a ribbon pane, we have some settings here. This is called as workspace, for workspace administration monitoring software and assistant complaint. So let's go to quickly to administration because we have already covered this. So hierarchy configuration, and now we have discovery methods. So basically these are the discovery methods we are talking about, right? So this is your active directory forest discovery. So what it is going to do, this is going to discover your sites and subnets. So if I enable active directory forest discovery, okay, it says automatically create active directory site boundaries when they are discovered. So if you are checking this box, it will automatically create for you. If you are checking this box, it will automatically create the site boundaries based on IP address ranges. So if you're checking these two boxes, they are automatically created. If you are not checking these two boxes, what happens? If you enable active forest discovery, it will just query the active directory. It will ask active directory what all the sites and subnets you have. Okay, once it gets the information, SCCM holds that information with it, but it will not create boundaries. For reference, what I'm telling is, if I go back here, if I want to create a boundary, okay, if I say create boundary, okay, and the boundary type is active directory site, okay, if I browse now, see, if I browse, it is trying to query the active directory now. So it is now pulling the active directory sites and services, but it is not creating any boundaries here, right? It is not creating any boundaries. So for now, what we need to do is run forest discovery, enable forest discovery. So you want to manually create it or you want to automatically get it created? The option is yours.
Manually is best because automatically it will come automatically, right? So no
Okay,
need
fine.
of
So what I will do is I will enable active directory forest discovery. Okay, it just discovers the items, but it will not create. Okay, and it will run every 1 week. See, active directory sites and service are very rare that you create each and every day. Don't do it each and every day, because you set up only when you have a new. You create a subnet when you only when you have a new set of IP addresses being allocated to your machine, or you create a site only when a new office is established. So these things are happens very rarely, so it doesn't happen every day in day out. So 1 week of discovery period is absolutely fine, but you can still have the option 1 hour and 1 day. So that's absolutely fine, but I will keep it to 1 hour. So it is asking to run full discovery as soon as possible. Yes, so I will run the full discovery. So the discovery is done, but the boundaries are not created. So now we will create a boundary. So there are three types of boundaries that we primarily use. We don't use this IPv6 prefix as of now, because no lot of companies not started using IPv6 to its full potential, only IPv4. And internally, for example, like especially in the corporate networks which are internal networks, so we don't necessarily need IPv6. Okay, so we just go with IPv4. So there are three options that we primarily use: IP subnet, active directory, IP address range. So IP subnet is, you need to give the network range. So we have 10.0.0.0.0. So that is our network ID. and you need to give the subnet ID as well. So it is 10.0.0.0. So this way you can create, and then you should give some kind of name. So this site belongs to Chennai, so you can give Chennai, and then boundary groups. Now boundary groups will not be populated here because you need to first create a boundary group, only then it will populate here. So
What
this
is
is one.
subnet mask?
Subnet mask you don't need to give it here because you're giving a network ID. Uh,
Okay.
because for example, if I give an IP address here, for example 10.0.0.1, so this is an IP address. So you know the IP rules, like see, if you have a subnet, the first IP address will be network ID, and the last the last IP address will be the broadcast ID. And for example, if you have 256 IP address, you can only use 254 IP addresses because the first one is network ID and the last one is broadcast ID. You cannot use the first and last IP addresses. So if I give 10.0.0.0 here, okay, it will automatically know the subnet, I mean subnet
Okay.
mask of it. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that is how you actually create. The next one is we have an active directory site. So for example, if you want to create a boundary based on active directory site, you can do that. If I select Hyderabad, okay, this is an active directory site, so I will select apply, and this is done. Okay, so you have created one boundary which is oh sorry, I need to change the name. I kept it as Chennai, so I will keep it as Hyderabad to avoid confusion. Okay, apply, and okay. So now we have one boundary which is for Hyderabad. If you want to create another boundary for Chennai, you can go with active directory site, and then say browse, and then say Chennai. Okay, and then give it a name which is, so I selected Hyderabad here, see, I need to select Chennai and then select OK and then give apply and then OK. So these are the configuration based on your active directory site. But if you have another option as well, which is IP address range boundary. So we have discussed about IP address range boundary, right? IP address range boundaries, actually there is a lot of debates on which one to use, whether IP address IP subnet or IP address range. So it depends, because some people say that IP address range boundary is primarily used for VPN users. That is why we bought the concept of IP subnet range. What happens is, like, when SCCM want to evaluate, it need to go through each and every IP, because if we are giving an IP address range, it will become like 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.253. Sorry, 10.0.0.253. So what happens is, like, whenever your active directory site, I mean, like, whenever boundary need to check for the IP address, you need to go through all these IP address, okay, 1 to 250 to 253 IP addresses, to see if that IP address is in that range or not. So it says that some people say that, okay, it creates some kind of performance impacts and all those stuff, but it depends, like, see, arguments are there on both the ways. Some says the type range is good, it increases your performance, and some people say that it will cause a lot of load on your primary site, because it want to evaluate through each and every IP address within that range. So there is no best practice that has been documented by Microsoft on this case, so it is up to you which one we need to use. So I say this as a Chennai IP range boundary. So I give it apply. So 10.0.0.1 to 253 is Chennai IP range, right? So you can create in the IP addresses range as well. Now, these are the boundaries that you have created. Boundaries is like a wall, okay? Okay, a wall. So in a wall, if you are putting some items and locking the door, you will be 100% sure that only these items will be there when you open the lock again, right? For example, if you go into your if you going to go to your wardrobe is empty right now, so you put some ornaments, gold ornaments, and you locked it, and you went out of station, and you came back, and you opened the you have opened that particular wardrobe again, and you found that ornaments are there. So you're 100% sure that in that particular wardrobe boundary, only that ornaments are there. Nothing will be added or nothing will be removed. So that is the concept. So you are now creating a boundary which is telling that this boundary will have this particular IP address ranges, IP addresses only. You are in this boundary, you are saying that your only Chennai will be the boundary for the Chennai site will be the boundary for this particular Active Directory site. So you are creating that particular boundaries. Now the boundary groups are like if for example you want to create a boundary group. Why you want to create a boundary group? um, so boundary groups are like you are giving your access. I mean, like you're telling your for example, your wardrobe is in the same example. If your wardrobe is having a passcode, okay, a password, it is not a lock, traditional lock method, you have a password. Okay, so you have an emergency and you told someone in your neighborhood to go and open that wardrobe and take the ornaments out and give it to someone. For that you need to tell him the password, right? So to open that wardrobe, in the similar way, only who has the password can open the wardrobe, and wardrobe will be opened only when the right password is entered. In the similar way, when you are uh, creating a boundary group, you are telling that boundary group to only talk to some particular server. So what happens, only that boundary group will accept only communication from those servers, and the boundary group will talk to only to the clients within that boundary. It will not talk to anyone else out of the boundary. Okay, if 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.253 is your boundary, and if some other IP address which is 10.1.0.0 is trying to communicate with your server, it will not communicate, it will not give it will not communicate with it and not give any proper response. So that is why you want to tie your boundaries to a boundary group, so that it reaches to the appropriate point, or a point of contact, or appropriate server to get the content, or the get the proper policies for their clients. So any questions? Is my example somewhat clear, or it created more confusion? I don't know.
Can you repeat again, Malik?
So
Actually,
okay. So what I'm telling is, this is a boundary. Okay, this
okay,
boundary can have only 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.253 IP addresses, which are 253 IP addresses. Yes.
okay, yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
it will not have more IP addresses or less IP addresses. It will have only 253 IP addresses.
okay,
Now what you want to do is, you want to create a boundary group. Okay, so this
okay,
boundary group is, I am naming as it as Chennai. Okay, now I want this boundary. See, you are just created a boundary. Okay,
yeah,
you just created a boundary that saying that only this boundary will have this IP addresses. But what is the use of that? What is the use of that? You just created a boundary, but what is the use of that? To make use of that boundary, okay, to make
mm-hmm.
use of that boundary, you need to create a boundary group. Why?
Okay,
Because see, uh, these particular IP addresses can't do anything, or these particular IP addresses don't know where to go, or they don't know why they have been created. Okay,
okay,
so if you now what you will do is, you will create a boundary group saying that it is Chennai. Now
mm-hmm.
you will add the boundary group. So this is the boundary group, for example, Chennai IP. You will add that boundary group here. Okay.
Okay,
Now what you will do it, you are giving a reference to it. So you're telling that whenever a client computer has an IP address from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.253, okay,
mm-hmm.
any IP address within that range, go and talk to this server. Okay, go and talk to this server only. Okay,
Okay,
so this server is your distribution point. This server is your management point here. Okay, so you are assigning that particular site to this boundary. So any IP addresses, or see, IP addresses are generally assigned to computers or devices, right? So any IP device which is falling in this particular IP address will go and talk to the sccmlab.com. Okay, so that
okay,
is what a boundary group is for. You're restricting your boundary to particular entity. The entity here is sccmlab.com. Okay,
okay,
so So that what happens. See, for example, if your client machine which is Windows 10, which is having an IP address of 10.0.0.8, now you have installed configuration manager client on the particular, you have pushed the client onto that Windows 10 PC. Now the Windows 10 PC need to communicate with the configuration manager server, so it will talk to the management point, which is the sccmlab.com. Now the management point says you have a software to be downloaded. Okay, you have a software to be downloaded. So the management point tells that, okay, go and get your application from your distribution point. So the client server, how it will know the distribution point? It will check for the boundary. Okay, I am falling in this particular Chennai boundary and my site system server is this, so I should go to this server and I will ask the application. Okay, so that is how it is work. So you got the concept or any confusion?
Yeah, yeah. Now it's clear.
It's clear, right? So you,
Yeah, yeah.
if you are assigning one particular IP address boundary to another and a site, so that all the IP addresses or all the devices which comes with that IP address will go and talk to the particular server name. So basically
Mm.
you have assigned one here, you can assign multiple. Okay, you can add another server also. Okay, for example, you have, if you have one more server, we don't have one more SCCM server, so it is not popping up. But if you have one more server, you can add another server here as well. See, you look at this connection state fast, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is, for example, I will draw you and show something. What happens if you create multiple things? For example, this is your SCCM server, and this is another SCCM server, and this is your client PC. Okay, now if you have added two servers here, okay, two servers, one with fast and one with slow. So you can change the connection type here, it becomes slow, and you can change it back, it becomes fast. So what happens, what happens when you have a fast and slow servers, two servers assigned to one boundary? For example, this IP address is 10.0.0.7. Okay, so it is falling in that particular boundary. Now we have two servers assigned, one with fast. Okay, this is fast and this is slow. Okay, this is fast and this is slow, right? There you have assigned, go back. Okay, so you have assigned one connection with one server with fast, and assume that you have a second server which is with a slow connection. So what happens, that you will configure for redundancy purpose. So for example, whenever your client want to download some package, so the 10.0.0.7, the client will talk to your SCCM management point server, and management point server tells that you have a software to be downloaded, go and get the software from your distribution point. Now this IP address, this client will check within the site boundary, what is my site boundary and which servers I am assigned to. So I have one server with fast and one server with slow. So normally I will go to the server with the fast route to get the package to be downloaded. If in case for some reason this particular server is down, okay, we have some hard disk failure or motherboard is corrupted and the server is not online, so SCCM server will try to communicate with the fast connection first. When it fails the communication with this particular server, it will route the request to the connection with the slow connection. It will route the connection to a different server which is the slow connection. So in this way you are ensuring that your clients can get the software downloaded to their machines, even though one of the distribution points is down, right? So you got the concept. So
Yes, yes.
you can actually add multiple boundaries here if you
So
would like.
we are adding the boundary here only, right? So if this now we have multiple distribution points. If one distribution point is failed, and we'll set the other distribution point here, right? So this is called a boundary settings.
Yeah, this is a boundary group, which means you are telling any client within this IP address talk to this server. Okay, if you
Okay.
have you can add multiple servers here. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can add multiple servers so that if one server is down, the second it can come, the client from these IP addresses can communicate with the second server
Okay.
to get the content. So
Okay.
clear, any still any questions?
Now only.
Okay, so that is a boundary group. So now now if I come to boundaries and now I click the properties here, you can see that this particular boundary group is automatically assigned to Chennai. Before we haven't done anything in boundaries, right? We just created a boundary with the IP address, but we haven't tied it to any boundary group. But now if I go here and see, the boundary group is Chennai. So all the IP addresses which fall within this range will talk to Chennai boundary group. Okay, and that particular boundary group is connected to a server. That particular boundary group is connected to a server which is sccmlab.com. So it will talk to this particular server. So you got the point. So we have boundaries with IP addresses, and the IP addresses are tied to a boundary group. This is the boundary group, and this boundary group is tied to a server. So it is in a circle, it is in a loop. Boundaries have IP addresses, and IP addresses have boundary groups. Boundary groups are associated to a server so that the communication happens within a circle. Clear?
Yes, yes, Malik. Yeah.
Everyone, right? Everyone is clear about the concept, because these are important things. So if you're not clear, I'm ready to explain again and again until you understand properly. But the point is, without understanding this concept, if we go further, again we need to come back to here. So that's why. So everyone is clear.
Yes,
No
yes, Malik.
questions. Perfect. So now these boundary groups are actually discovered using forest discovery. Okay, the IP address and other things are discovered, sites are discovered using forest discovery. Now, similarly, it is Active Directory. It is not just about sites and subnets. It also have other entities, right? It also have other entities like users. It have other entities like groups, computers, and a lot of other stuff which is happening in Active Directory. So for this forest discovery is used to create boundaries and boundary groups, and you know the essential need of why a boundary group is required and why a boundary is required. Now the core part is like we are when we are dealing with Active Directory, I'm sorry, SCCM device collection or user collection. So the core pieces are this. These are the things which are actually going to provide information for those. So for user collection, we need users. For device collections, computers need to be actually queried by our particular SCCM server. So for that, I will go with first user discovery. Okay, so we'll start with user discovery. So for properties, I'll go to right click and properties and say enable Active Directory user discovery. So by doing this, what will happen? It will try to query all the objects within your Active Directory. For example, what I mean to say is, if you go here, our users are here in corporate folder. Okay, in corporate OU, in human there are users. But if you just enable and leave it, if you just check this box, okay, if you just check this box and say enable Active Directory user discovery and leave it, what happens is Active Directory, I mean, like what happens is SCCM will query everything from starting from here, every folder, every object, everything. It will query and see whether whether it is an user object or not, whether it is an user object or not. So in Active Directory there is something called as attribute. Okay, attribute. So each and every attribute tells some kind of information. So for to recognize a user, there will be some kind of attribute. To recognize a computer object, there will be some kind of attribute. To recognize a group, there will be some kind of an attribute here. So for example, you take one particular attribute here. So if this is object type, if it is set to 1, the value is set to 1, it is user. If the object type value is set to 2, it is a computer. If the object type value is set to 3, then it is a group. So that is how Active Directory or SCCM actually recognizes a user, computer, and a group object. Okay. So clear about that, right? So everything will be queried, every object will be queried, and it will look for users. So that is what we do, that is something we don't need to want, because it will create a lot and lot of load on Active Directory and also on the SCCM server. So now for to avoid that, what you will do is actually we will write some path uh, where our user objects are stored. For example, in my infrastructure, my I mean my objects are stored in, for example, corporate. Okay, so I will select corporate. So basically, if you look here, I selected corporate. Now if I go back to Active Directory, okay, corporate has human resources OU, it has computers OU, it has users OU, it has sales OU, again computers and users. So it is going to evaluate all these objects now. So now you have reduced something, right? From here to from here querying everything, now you have reduced and limited to only this particular object from corporate OU, right? You got the concept?
Yes, yes, Malik.
Yes.
Instead of querying everything, now you have limited only to this particular set, this particular corporate set. So it kind of an okay query. It reduces some kind of performance. It can improve some kind of some performance when you actually instead of doing lab.com, okay, instead of doing this, if you are doing corporate, it is reducing some kind of load, but it is not still an accurate query. What could be an accurate query? You can select this as a user, right? This is one of the accurate queries. Okay, but now we have another problem. If we are doing this, okay, for example, I delete this. If you are doing this, if I say corporate human resources and users, if I'm doing this, now I'm limiting only to this particular folder, which is good. But the problem here is we are not able to recognize the users in the sales,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Sales also has a user, so but we are not able to recognize that particular users. So for that, there is an option like you can go with corporate if you think okay, that is we have the corporate can be queried, or the other way is like you can click users and say okay and add another query, browse, and then you click corporate, then sorry corporate, and then go to sales and then users. So this way you are actually reducing the number of queries that SCCM does for you. So if you look it here, so this is the LDAP notation. So primarily for exchange, right? You know exchange. So if your Outlook client want to talk to exchange server, it uses some kind of protocol called as IMAP, POP3, SMTP, right? And in similar way, if an application, if your web browser want to talk to an application, there's some kind of protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, and all those stuff. Now similarly, if any application or any entity want to talk to Active Directory, there is some kind of protocol which is called as LDAP, lightweight directory, LDAP, right? Lightweight directory access protocol, something like that. So that is the full form. So now SCCM uses LDAP protocol to query your Active Directory users and computers and groups. So this is the LDAP notation using which it is actually querying. So now we have limited only to a particular OU where users resist, so that this is actually a very good I mean like very good query that we have written here, uh, in taking performance into picture. Okay, taking performance into picture, we are not putting more load, we are putting load which is really required for us. So that is one option. Now there is now I go back to sales, and then I will say sales user. Okay, now this is pulling all users within the sales, that is fine. Now there are a couple of options here. The first option says recursively search Active Directory child containers, which means if you are selecting this particular corporate, okay, It is not just looking at corporate, right? It is looking at human resources and computers and users. It is looking at sales. It is looking at computers and users. And for example, if users also have some kind of folder, another folder within in it, it will also search within that folder, which means if you are giving a top level object, if you are giving a top level object of users, whatever is within that users, okay, whatever is within that users, okay, it can be users or there will be some folders within that, and there will be some groups within that, okay, there will be some groups within that. Just give me a minute, okay, just give me a minute, I'm getting some call from now. Okay, I'm sorry. So it is recursively searching, which means for example, if you take an example of this particular, so if I'm creating some kind of a new folder, so you can take this as an example, this recursively searching this, if you are giving, see, similarly to your active directory, there are a lot of folders. Now what you have done, you have limited to this folder. Now you have limited to this folder and you are telling that recursively search, which means even in this folder there are a lot of other folders, and if that folder also has a user object, you need to pull that user. You got the point? There are 10 folders within this, and for example, I will tell you like this. See, for example, you are telling this as a for example, this is the folder that you have given, okay. Now what happens, it queries. Now think that all these are user objects and these are folders, all these are users with .dl and all, everything are users, and these are folders. But within these folders also there are some users. For example, within this folder also there are some users. So SSM is not going to just select all, I mean, like, select only these users and leave it. It is also recursively means within this folder, if there is also any other user object, pull that user object also, okay. It is not going to come inside and see these are the user objects and leave it. Within this fold, within that, anything, anywhere, if you store a user object, it will pull that user object as well. So that is
Okay.
called as recursive searching. So for example, the second option is discover objects within active directory groups. So if, for example, if I go to active directory, okay, for example, if I go to active directory and then, okay, this is the user object. Now I create a group here, for example, okay, if I create a group and I say test, okay, and then if I add some members here, okay, some member, check name, okay, now okay, I have a group now. This is a security group. Now I've given this folder to be checked for users. Okay, now it comes here and check for users only for users. It will not check for security group. But in security group, you have a user, right? In security group, you have a user. So if you want this particular user to be also pulled, right? This particular user to be also pulled within that group, then you need to check this option which says discover objects within active directory groups. So in this particular path, if there are groups and if that groups has users, so you need to pull that particular user also. So that is what this option says. So it completely, see, if you have a very good domain architecture, if you are placing everything appropriately like we did right now, if we are placing users in users folder, computers in computers folder, groups in groups folder. So if you're actually maintaining that hierarchy very well, so you will not end up this kind of scenarios. So if you think that your active directory infrastructure is not actually well structured, and if you see there are a lot of groups in user folder, there are a lot of users in computers folder, so if that kind of things happen, so then you need to take these options into consideration while you are actually are creating the discovery method. So these are the things that you actually need to take into consideration when you, I mean, it depends, like whatever your infrastructure is, if it is well organized, there is no option for, there is no actually a need for this option here, but this option is okay, this option is fine. Recursively searching active directory child containers is not going to do any kind of a performance issue or something like that. But this option is something you need to check. If your active directory is not well maintained, it is not structured, then you need to enable this option. If you think my organization has structured it very well, put appropriate objects in appropriate containers, so I don't need this, because I know that only users will exist in user folder, so I don't really need this option. So if you want a specific account for doing all these queries, you can set it, or you can leave it to use the computer account of the site server. So that is up to you. So you generally use the computer account. We don't specify any specific account, because it can read the attributes from active directory. So there is no need of setting a specific service account or something like that to do active directory queries. So now we have created the two queries to pull user objects. Now if I go to polling schedule, there are two types here. One is this is a full discovery, which means the SCCM will check that particular OU completely every 7 days. Okay, every 7 days it will go through each and every object and see if there is something changed, and if something is deleted, it will remove that object from his discovery method. If something is newly added, it will pull that new change. Okay, that is the full discovery. Now there's something called as enable delta discovery. Delta discovery is SCCM will only look for changes that has happened after the full. But see, for example, if the full discovery is now completed, after 5 minutes it will run the delta discovery and look for only changes that has happened since the last full discovery. And again, next after 5 minutes it will again check for changes that happened after first delta discovery. Next, the third 5 minutes it will poll again to active directory, and I mean primarily we can say that it will discover only changes that has happened since the last discovery. Okay, since the last discovery, what are the changes that has been made, that will be polled for every 5 minutes. Full discovery is, it will like full backup and incremental backup, you know, right? Full backup is you are taking full backup every 7 days. Incremental backup is you are only backing up the changes which has happened after the full backup is taken. So incremental backup is only pulling the changes. Full backup is taking the full complete backup of it. Similarly, full discovery is, it will search the complete directory every 7 days, but it will do a delta discovery as well for every 5 minutes, which means it will pull only changes that has happened since the last discovery. Clear? Any
Clear,
Yes,
Malik.
questions?
yes, Malik. Yeah, Malik. Right.
Okay, so basically, typically you need to consider like a couple of things while architecting, right? How frequently your infrastructure changes. So users and computers are something we deal day-to-day basis, because a lot of people are leave organization. A lot of people come into organization every now and then. Every day we will have new wires. So delta discovery works absolutely fine for that. Full discovery schedule can be set to 7 days. That is absolutely fine. Uh, so we don't need to change any of the default settings over here. But if you want to become more aggressive and more scanning, you can change the schedule to 2 days, 1 day, whatever it is. So it's up to you. Depends on whatever the infrastructure you have. And the third thing is active directory attributes. So I'm discussing about attributes here, right? So if I go to an active directory, any object you go, any object you take, there will be attributes. See, object is nothing but attributes. So for a user, there will be a lot of attributes. These are all the attributes it will have. Attributes is what make a object. So every object has a lot of, see, it says when it was changed, who, when it was created, and there will be a lot of objects like first name, last name. So this is the last name Reddy. Okay, there is a first name. If you go to, there is a first name attribute. Okay, so there are a lot of this is the given name attribute. So there are a lot of attributes which makes an object. okay, which makes an object. So for computers, for users, for groups, everything will have an attribute. So now SSCM is by default querying these objects. So this is grid. Object grid is we are talking about read and SID right before, unique identifiers. So in Active Directory, there is a RID read master role, which will actually allocate random sequence numbers to each and every object to identify and maintain its uniqueness within Active
Yes, yes.
Directory. In
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
similar way, there is something there. In similar way, there will be a large number which is GID. Uh, Graphical user identification, something the full form is. So it will actually pull that particular object. It will pull the first name. Sam account name is the logon name of the user. So these are the attributes which SCCM is going to pull from the Active Directory. In addition, if you would like to add any other attributes, you can select that object. For example, if you want to create a device collection based on last logon time or something, okay, last logon time, so you select last logon time and here and click apply. So that what happens, so when the full discovery runs, it will also pulls the last logon time information for you. So based on the last logon time, you want to create a device collection and push some kind of security policy, or push some kind of software or something, anything that you'd like to do. Basically you can do it based on the attributes. So that is why attribute is important. By default SSCM will pull all these attributes. If you want any additional attribute, you can pull that additional attribute and add it here. Okay, so now
These
next.
Malik, this is useful for reporting purpose also, right? Attributes.
Yes, reporting purpose. Yes, you can
Yeah.
do, if you can do it for scripting. You can use
Yeah.
attributes for scripting. You can do for reporting. You can do a hell lot of stuff using attributes, because anything in Active Directory has an attribute, right? So if you
Yeah.
want to do some kind of reporting or scripting based on the attribute, which means that you are directly doing that implementation on an object itself, right? You're
Yeah.
based. So last logon time is 10/1/2017. That means it is not just an attribute. It is an attribute which is associated with an user, which means that particular user has logged on in 2018 and since not logged on in this particular fiscal year at all. So that is something you can actually query and do a lot of stuff using Active Directory attributes. They're really powerful. So this is
Yeah.
basically the discovery method for Active Directory users and user discovery. So we have covered forest discovery and user discovery so far. So any other questions?
No, Malik. No.
No, Malik.
Absolutely clear, right? With each and every
Yeah.
option.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Fine. So if you have still any other questions, just go through, I mean, like walk through your own infrastructure. You have SCCM server at your office. So just open and see what are the settings that you have. Don't change anything. Look which side boundary is associated to which server and why is that. So just go through all those stuff. So you will have a
Yeah.
lot more visibility. So I will cover group discovery, system discovery tomorrow. Uh,
Okay.
and then we'll start going into device collections. First we'll go device collection and then user collection, and then we will deploy a configuration manager client for Windows 10 machine, and then we create a user device affinity, and then we'll go into client policies, which are really important. Once we cover client policies, then we will go ahead with applications packaging. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I will stop the recording for now if you don't have any other questions. So
Okay, Malik.